Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Tiffany and I do movie reactions and apparently movie reviews on YouTube. But if you're not new here, welcome back, cinephiles. So today, as you can tell from my community tab post or the thumbnail on this video or the title of this video, we are going to be looking at Scream 7. I went and saw this movie yesterday with my mother. It is something that she showed me when I was very little, and that obviously made it my favorite horror movie, which you knew if you have watched anything on this channel, particularly my reaction to the first 6 movies, which I will link up above. If you have not seen it, please go check it out. That is a series that I absolutely love, and there is a part of me, a small part, that is a little regretful that I did it for my first year on YouTube, just because it's something that I always want to watch again, but obviously I can watch it on my own time as well. Scream 7 released on February 27th, and again follows Sidney and Gale as they take down yet another masked killer. This is different from Scream 6 and 5, where the main characters were Sam and Tara Carpenter, played respectively by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, who did not return for this film. I will not be getting into the reasons for Melissa Barrera not returning to the series, primarily because this is about the movie that was put forth and what I thought of it, but I will be doing a reaction to the movie once it comes to streaming. I am very excited to see it again. My partner and I actually joked about me and him going last night to see it again, so that's great. But if you haven't already, go get a drink and a snack, because this is going to be one chatty video. This one was interesting. There weren't a ton of people in the theater, but it was packed enough that you could tell it was opening weekend. And like I said, I went with my mother, who showed me Scream and who shares some commonalities with me in my viewership, except for she hates horror movies. So that is something that we've always differed on. But I told her I was going to tell you guys, and she watches these videos, and I know you're watching this one, but I told you I was going to tell them. She left me halfway through the movie. She got up to use the restroom, came back, couldn't find me, tried to sit with strangers, and then wound up going and sitting by herself, and I watched the rest of the movie alone, which was quiet. It was fine. I really enjoyed getting to go and see this film. I am very excited to have been able to do that. So thank you, Mom, for buying my ticket and asking me to go with you. I appreciate that. Something else that we were able to get is, I know that you guys have probably seen where Scream is having a huge marketing campaign where they are doing popcorn buckets and drinks and everything. The theater that I went to had them as well, and I was able to snag my very own cup. I actually have 2 of them. I gave one to my partner, and so this is the drink cup that we had. The cup just says Scream 7, and it has Ghostface on the back, the silhouette, but this top here is adorable. It has Ghostface sitting in a movie chair eating popcorn with his little knife. Let you guys get a look at that. But the popcorn bucket my mother kept, and it was pretty similar to this. It just looked like this. It basically, if you took the lid off and made this popcorn bucket size, this is what the popcorn bucket looked like. So I'm very happy that I got to keep the cups, because these were my favorite. But it came with 2 cups and a popcorn bucket, and it was just so nice to have something. This is actually my first Scream memorabilia. I do have a Scream 6 shirt, and I have Ghostface in Funko Pop, as well as a little side crossbody bag that is Ghostface, and some slippers that are Ghostface. But this is my first, like, opening night, opening weekend memorabilia. I have gone and seen all of the past 4 Scream movies in theaters, but it was really cool to be able to do that on opening weekend and get some of the memorabilia that they were selling. So that was amazing. Now we're getting into the pros of the movie. This film does follow Sidney. She is not living in Woodsboro anymore. She is living in Pine Grove, Indiana, with her husband, Mark, and her daughter, Tatum, and her other two daughters, who we still don't have names for, and they were not in the film. They were only in like a video call in the film. Something that I thought was handled okay or pretty well was the relationship with Sidney and Tatum. It had its issues, which I'll get into with the cons, but with the pros, Sidney has gone through a lot of trauma. I mean, you have to think movies 1 through 4 are all about her. She appears briefly in 5 and she wasn't in 6, but movies 1 through 4 are all about her and people coming after her and people trying to kill her. So she has had a lot of trauma, and for her, if you talk about this stuff, it's going to happen again. She wrote a book in 4 called Out of Darkness about, getting rid of her trauma and stopping being a victim in her mind, being a survivor, and her cousin tried to kill her. So it makes sense that she would stop talking about this altogether. However, she doesn't talk about it with her own daughter. And Tatum, who is named for Tatum in the first movie, and if you watched my Scream 7 trailer reaction, I freaked out about that because I always said that it would be great if Sidney had a daughter and named her Tatum. But she will not talk to Tatum at all about any of this. She will not go into detail at all, which in some ways I can understand and in some ways I can't. But my question more is, does Sidney think that talking to Tatum about this is going to turn her into herself? And also that begs the question, the reason that Sidney is the way Sidney is because Maureen slept with Sidney's boyfriend's dad and several other people and exiled Sidney's brother. So is Sidney planning on doing that? Because I don't think so. The other side of that is, does Sidney not want Tatum knowing so that nobody can bother Tatum about it? Nobody can come to Tatum and ask questions about Sidney. But that didn't make sense either because there is a slew of movies and an entire book about her past. And Sidney even says it in the film. You can do an entire deep dive. So why not just talk to her daughter about it? Now, I know that it sounds like I'm being negative about this, but the pro of that is it's believable. It's believable for somebody who comes from horrific trauma to hide that from their loved ones, to want to internalize it, to want to not speak about it, and to pretend that everything is fine and it's not there anymore. So for that, I will very much praise Isabel May and Neve Campbell's performance as mother and daughter. It worked. It gave a lot of depth to their characters. Now, when we get into the other characters, we'll talk about that later. But for this, their character development as mother and daughter was very well done. It was believable. It was heart-wrenching. You wanted them to survive. You wanted them to help each other. But nonetheless, Sidney probably should have talked to her daughter. Something else that I thought was really done with this film was the cast. You have very much well-known actors in this film, which goes along with what I read in Patrick Moroney's It All Began with a Scream, where the more Scream movies there are, the more actors in Hollywood and non-actors, myself included, who would love to be in a Scream movie. So in this film, we have McKenna Grace, who is known for Ghostbusters, Annabelle Comes Home, which we've done on this channel. She's also done Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which we will be doing on this channel. You've got Isabel May, who was in Yellowstone 1883 and who does the voiceovers for, I believe it's 1921. You have Joel McHale playing Mark Evans, Sidney's husband, who was in the horror film It's a Wonderful Knife. And I will get into his character in just a bit because I know that there was a lot of debate about his character. You have Asa German, who is known for being Sam Reardon in Gen V. Celeste O'Connor, who also did Ghostbusters, but I knew her from Freaky as the best friend. We have Michelle Randolph, who has gained a lot of notoriety lately doing Landman, and who was the opening kill, which was already spoiled for us, so that's not a spoiler. And lastly, the last person that I recognized was Sam Reckner, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, but I refer to him as, and this is about his character, not him, but the little shit from Heartbreak High. I love Heartbreak High on Netflix. I love a good little teen show. But in season 2, he plays a character named Rowan, who I absolutely despised. So it was interesting to see him and actually like his character in this show, or in this movie. The cast did really well, but the problem with that cast is their characters. Another pro that I looked at was the opening kill. It starts out, we have the Stumacher experience where they have basically turned the house into a museum of the kills. It's a little weird. I'm a true crime fan and a horror fan, and I'm not too sure I would go on that. But it also reminded me a lot of like the Museum of Death, and like you can go see the Borden house and such like that. So it was a little iffy for me, but I thought that it was still, it looked really cool. And so we have Michelle Randolph and Jimmy Tatro going in and basically doing the Stumacher experience where they can tour the house and there's like body outlines everywhere. This was all very much shown in the trailer, so it was something that wasn't very surprising at all, but it was still cool to watch. The relationship between Jimmy Tatro and Michelle Randolph's characters, Madison and Scott, was very cute. You very much had the boyfriend who was highly into these topics, who was very interested in that, very horror based, very, true crime based, me as a man. But Michelle was not, or not Michelle, Madison was not, her name is Michelle, her character's name is Madison. She was not. She's very much like the girly girl from what you see. And obviously, they are the opening kill. I liked it though because they were believable as a couple. You do have those people that are different and opposites attract. I love horror films, but my partner prefers anime and action films. I game, but I prefer like Sims, whereas he's a GTA person. He loves cyber stuff, like he puts together gaming consoles and computers and stuff, and I read. So opposites do attract. They were extremely believable as a couple, and they were really cute too. Also, it just made me want to go to Spring Hill Estate more. That is my biggest dream. I want to spend my birthday there eventually, whenever I'm able to. But I really loved that. I know that Gavin Reads It All, which is probably my favorite booktube channel, because I do watch booktube a lot. I watched his 24-hour readathon this morning while I was doing a little bit of planning. He's going to Spring Hill Estate according to his spring TBR, so I will definitely be watching that, and I'm hella jealous. The kills in this film were inventive. There aren't many of them. I want to say there was around 7. And I say I want to say there's around 7 because I've already done the tiles for my updated kill ranking when I do that. But there was about 3 deaths that were more inventive than the others. Hadn't really seen very much of them. We come from the other Scream movies where it's just a slash, or you've got that really important death like Olivia in Scream 4, which is very brutal. But there's a death in this film, and I'm not going to say who it was because I want to avoid spoilers at all costs. There is a death in this one that people all over TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, social media as a whole has said rivals Olivia's death just because of the context of it. I could see where it does. It was horrifying for me, but I still loved the way it was done. I loved absolutely seeing the death itself, and it's done on, I will tell you that what the death is, but not who the death was. This person was dragged through a bar, and they had their stomach stabbed, and then they had the base of their skull pushed down onto, I want to say that it's like a tap thing for beer. The handle that they pull, it was a pointy end, and they had their skull push down onto it. And when Ghostface lets go of their body and they slump, the tap turns on and beer and blood just start spurting out of the mouth. It's crazy and insane, but in the context, I could definitely see how that death would go up against Olivia's for the most brutal or most gruesome death in the series. But I will have to say that, in my personal opinion, Olivia's death is still the most brutal. She had her guts completely torn out, and they were just laying there. She was thrown through a window and jostled over and back and forth, and like, she was brutalized for no reason. So I would still say that Olivia is probably the worst death of the Scream franchise. But the one in this movie is pretty much a close second. Something else that was very well done is this film pays a lot of respect to the original. So in 5, we talked a lot about requels, and then in 6, it was, the sequel, requel, stuff like that. But in this one, it's all about nostalgia. Mindy and Chad do come back. I'll get into their characters. But Mindy even talks about, like, how all of this film is about nostalgia. It's about Sidney. She does the whole rules thing again. But you could see it, because this film not only was co-written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote the original script, but it was also directed by Kevin Williamson. And this is the first of the Scream movies that he has directed. You see a lot of respect paid to Wes Craven by Kevin Williamson in a lot of the shots. Something that Kevin Williamson did do in this film, and you don't see in the others, is he did a lot of silhouette shots where you would see a character doing something, and then in the background you would just see, like, the outline of the Ghostface mask, and then Ghostface come into view, and then back away, and it would be dark again. And so every time I saw him, I was very much like, oh my god, there he is. So I thought that was really well done, but there was a lot of respect paid to Wes with a lot of the shots that were done. You could very much see how they mirrored some of the shots from the original movie, not the sequels, but the original movie itself. So it was fun as a horror watcher and a horror fan to see those scenes, but as somebody who was being a little bit more critical of the film, trying to, really look at it, it was a little repetitive. Another good facet of this film is the relationship between Sidney and Mark. When I first heard that Joel McHale was cast as Mark, I was not happy. You have a cop named Mark, and everyone in this series, everyone who has seen this series as a whole, thinks about Mark Kincaid. So I wasn't too sure how that was going to work going into it. I thought that if you were going to have somebody else play her husband, first of all, don't make him a cop, and second of all, don't name him Mark. Make him a carpenter named Mike or something. Or, I don't know. But it almost felt like Kevin Williamson and the crew had asked Patrick Dempsey to come back, and whether he just said no, or there were scheduling conflicts or anything like that, they were like, well, we already have a cop named Mark, might as well just leave it, but make him a different Mark, and change his last name from Kincaid to Evans. But I was actually really happy with it. Joel McHale dominated that role. He was such a breath of fresh air, such a welcome sight. And the way that this Mark reacts with Sidney is something that I really think she needed. She is somebody who does have that trauma, somebody who is hard on the outer and inner shells of her life, but Mark isn't. Mark is very much that golden retriever to Sidney's PTSD-laden bulldog, if you will. And there's even a moment when she's speaking to her daughter, and as the audience, you're like, well, she had her reasons, because we love Sidney, and because in that scene we understand why she's acting that way. But as a parent, Mark was like, you're in the wrong here. And so he really called her on her stuff and really tried to be that voice of reason in Sidney's life, which is something that Sidney really does need. Even though I will say that had Derek survived Scream 2, there would be no Mark Kincaid and there would be no Mark Evans. That those kids would be Derek's children, and they would have stayed together for forever. Mark is also an amazing dad to Tatum. There are several scenes where he jumps into action as soon as one of them is in danger, and he immediately runs to them, no questions asked, without giving too much away. In the final scenes, he does really show his prowess as a dad, which was something that was really sweet to see. He does remind me of a replacement Dewey, but not fully. Nobody can ever be Dewey, but he almost becomes the new heart of the film. And that was something that I wasn't expecting. And so I was very much happy with that. So kudos to Joel McHale, except for he wears a turtleneck under his uniform, and that just irritated me. That's just a personal choice. I wanted so badly to just scream, "Take it off! Take the dang turtleneck off!" But other than that, it was just great. Along with the relationship between Sidney and with her daughter and husband, our last pro is the relationship between Gale and Sidney. Gale does come back. We saw that in the trailer, and Gale has gone through it. You can just tell that Gale is dealing with a lot. We'll just put it that way. But the relationship between Sidney and Gale is always very competitive, very complicated. Gale kind of wants to be the main star and is a little, deterred when people talk more about Sidney because she is the survivor. Even though Gale did survive the same stuff, she's been stabbed, shot, everything. But they still have their bickering back and forth. It's good to see that Gale and Sidney still have that type of relationship. Gale does wind up getting her interview, and that's a lot because if you have known Gale throughout any of these other movies, you know that she is going to try her hardest to get the information that she's been wanting since 1996. So that was interesting, and again, shown in a trailer. But their relationship is still nice. I think that it's good that they kept their relationship the same even after Dewey's death. I mean, they are the only ones left, and which is extremely sad to think about, but it's good to see that nothing has changed their relationship, and they are still friends at the core of it all. Now we are going to be moving on to the cons of the film. Things that I thought could have been better, could have done with a little bit more editing, done with a little bit different writing. These are just things that I wasn't too pleased about with the movie, and I'm going to go ahead and preface this. This is my opinion, my viewing, and these could change when I do my reaction. These could change from person to person. You are fully entitled to your opinion, and I would love to hear it. If you would like to leave that down in the comment section below and let me know if there's something you disagree with, I am perfectly fine with that. We are all opinionated human beings who want to share what we have to say. But the first would be some of the directing choices that Kevin Williamson made. When I heard that Kevin Williamson was directing the film, I was ecstatic. I have been a huge fan of Kevin Williamson. He did I Know What You Did Last Summer. He wrote Scream. He helped create some of our favorite TV shows, Dawson's Creek. Rest in peace to James Vanderbeek, who passed away this month. And he also did some work on Vampire Diaries and stuff like that. So he has had a very prolific career, but I have not seen very many movies that he's directed, I don't think, or at least it's not coming to my head at the moment. But he directed this one, and there were a lot of scenes that were exactly identical to scenes from Scream in 1996. People crawling through windows. The same exact song played when Tatum's boyfriend crawled through her window and started making out with her, as when Billy crawled through Sidney's window in the first movie and started making out with her. Now, don't get me wrong. Gus Black's version of Don't Fear the Reaper is my all-time favorite song. But it was very much just repetitive and redundant. Even after the murders start and the town goes on lockdown, which kind of happens in every film, 2, 4, such like that, there's still a scene of everybody closing up shop, and what's playing? Red Right Hand. So it was a little like, okay, well, I understand that you're trying to be nostalgic, and I understand that you're trying to give, that respect and honor to Wes Craven's work, but make it your own, please. So I was a little iffy about that. I wasn't too happy with that. But regardless, it's just a few scenes. Next thing we're going to be talking about is the characters. Now, I spoke about in the pros how amazing the cast was. I wish they had been given better characters to play. We don't care about these characters. They are not on screen long enough for us to give a crap about any of them. We're like, oh, that person's pretty. They're played by somebody nice. Oh, no, and they're dead. Oh, I recognize that person from this. Oh, they're dead. There is not much substance to any of these characters. In every single Scream movie, we are given time with the characters to actually care about them. In the first movie, that friend group was everything. And then in Scream 2, Derek, Mickey, Hallie, we loved them. Scream 3, we had Jennifer, who was such an amazing character, and we loved them. Even Tom, we grew not to like, and he died. In 4, we had Kirby, Robbie, characters that we absolutely adored, characters that we still think about. In 5, we had Judy and Wes, even though I didn't like Judy, but still, characters that we actually cared about. In this film, there is not one new character that I can pinpoint and say, I'm going to miss them. Not one. Now, there's some that I could point to and say, oh, I wish they hadn't got such a brutal death. But there is not one person that is in this movie that I will mourn. They are all cannon fodder, because the majority of the movie is spent looking at the relationship between Sidney and Tatum, that the friend group that is in danger doesn't matter. And that is something that I have not said about any other Scream film, and it was very disheartening, because I thought the cast was amazing. You have this all-star cast. Give them a good script. Give them a good character to play. Give them a character we are going to care about. To give them a character that we are going to worry about. And that was not done. They wound up having to amp up some of the kills, like the bar death, to make us care about this character or care about this character. And it worked on the shock factor, but after that character was off screen, it was like, okay, well, they were in about 2 scenes. Okay. Oh, this character was in about 3 scenes, and now they're gone. Okay, well. Oh, well. I didn't remember all these characters' names when I was writing this outline. I had to go look up their names. And that's something that shouldn't have to happen in a Scream movie when we have seen 6 other films where we have gotten to know these characters and have wanted to care about them. Even Quinn in Scream 6, when she had a fake death, I was like, oh, that's just bad. That's sad. Annika's death just traumatized the rest of the movie. She was in the movie for a total of maybe 5 or 6 scenes, but the script was so good for her character that we actually cared when she got thrown off the ladder. I didn't have that in this movie. And I'm not used to having that with a Scream film. Mindy and Chad were brought back for this film. We saw that in the trailer. I was very upset in the trailer because it showed a scene where Mindy and Chad were attacked. That's not in the movie. Mindy and Chad were in a total of maybe 4 scenes. They were severely underutilized. Severely. And because that scene from the trailer was not in the film, you see them at the bar doing the little group get-together that they've done in every film, and then the next time you see them, they're, like, hurting, and Mindy says something about blood loss, but they weren't attacked. And unless you'd seen the trailer, you wouldn't know that they were supposed to have been attacked. So that was a very odd choice to keep in the film at the end of it when they come out of the car with Gail, and they're like, oh, blood loss, oh, attacked, I can't hold this, I can't do that. And you're like, well, why? If you're going to cut that much of an important scene with these 2 characters that you know your audience loves, redo that scene to where they get out of the car and they're like, okay, yeah, we're here. But you have them still hurt, and we didn't see them get hurt. I did not get up from that movie, so unless I blinked and missed it, I think that something that we really ran into was, since Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega were not coming back, Kevin Williamson felt like he had to broach that gap between 5 and 6 and the rest of the series by bringing Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown back. Don't get me wrong, I love Mindy and Chad. Chad especially. But don't bring them back and underutilize them in this way. We brought Kirby back in Scream 6 and she was used perfectly. Why can't we have that for Mindy and Chad? Not to mention, in this film, Mindy has lost her spark quite a bit. And since when does Mindy and Chad want to be Gale? Chad is used as a cameraman. He basically is taking his dad's roots. Because if you haven't seen a lot of the speculation, his dad possibly is Joel Martin from Scream 2, the cameraman that worked with Gale, which I think is amazing. But it doesn't make a lot of sense why he went from being the football athlete to... They never really talk about what he studies in college, but now he wants to be a cameraman? And Mindy, being a very opinionated, outspoken person who loves horror films and everything, then going to somebody who, again, none of their majors were talked about in the 6th movie, to now wanting to be Gale? Really? And she lost a lot of her spark. She is not very opinionated. Chad is there to rein Mindy in, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They were severely underutilized. I did not like the fact that they were there, not because I didn't want to see them again, but because it felt like they did such a disservice to their characters. I was not happy with that at all. So I've talked a lot about, the things with the trailer. I've talked about it a lot with the opening kill. I think the trailer was edited badly. When I watched the trailer for the first time, I loved it. I thought that it was crazy. I really wanted to see the movie. Having seen the movie, I watched the trailer. A lot of the scenes that are shocking and are exciting and are something that you really want to think about are in the trailer. That opening kill is in the trailer when Michelle Randolph's character Madison is hanging from the banister and falls onto the knife. That is in the trailer. The scene where one of the characters is strung up and silhouetted and the cops are running in to find the person murdered is in the trailer. So why are we putting all of these really cool moments in the trailer? Yes, it's to get people into the seats and to up the box office numbers. But why are those the only moments that we really love? Why is Mindy and Chad's attack in the trailer and not in the movie? So for that, I would say that I would have rather not seen the trailer and just gone into the movie blind, because that trailer did this movie a disservice a little bit. And that does speak a lot on the editing of the trailer. Obviously, you want people, like I said, you want people in the seats, you want to show them, but there are movies that edit their trailers really well, and then there are movies that put their entire film, all of the good moments, into the trailer. And those are movies that are not great. I talked about the good parts of Sidney and Tatum's relationship, and now we're going to go to the cons of that relationship. They brought Sidney back for this film. She is the final girl, but in a way she is passing the torch to Tatum. So tell me why a lot of this movie is them getting attacked, Sidney's telling Tatum to stay there, and Tatum whining, wanting to go with her mom. I understand that part. I am a daughter, and if I'm getting attacked and I have no idea what's going on, I'm not splitting up. I don't care who I'm with. You ain't leaving me. No, we are going together. 2 is better than 1. But the entire film is Tatum whining about it. And granted, yes, she is 17. She has never been through these things before. And Sidney is like a war-torn veteran who is very much aware of everything. So I just didn't like it because it was very repetitive. It was very, you stay here, I'm going to go do this. No, Mom, don't leave me. Okay, you can come with me. And that got to the point where it was like, okay, we know that something's going to happen. Sidney's not going to let her daughter see. Because even in these moments, Sidney refuses to talk to her and treat her. If I had a daughter after having situations like this, I wouldn't go full on Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2018, but I was at least be like, hey, why don't we take self-defense classes together? Or, hey, let me enroll you in karate, just so you know, like, how to defend yourself. In this world, without the ghost face killings and all that, women and men alike have to know how to defend themselves against things. So why not make it that way? You don't have to go into detail about, oh, I loved this person and they tried to kill me. Oh, I love this person and they died. Oh, I love this person. Just, hey, I've been through a lot in my life. I know how important it is to have self-defense. I would like for you and your sisters to understand that as well. And then we could have done with that. Then Tatum would have had more agency and she wouldn't have been too vulnerable because she doesn't fight. A lot of Isabel May's acting in this is not used, and she's a very good actress because she's spending the majority of the movie running around screaming. She's not fighting back. And the moments where she does fight back, you're like, yes, thank you, and then it ends. So they could have done better on that side of the relationship. It was very much, their relationship took up so much of the film where you're trying to see like the dynamic between them, that everything else was either really rushed or, like the characters, was not developed enough. Now we're going to get into the killers. I will not tell you who the killers are, but I will talk about how my feelings on that. I thought the choice of who was in the Ghostface mask was random. Once unmasked, there was a moment where I went, huh? And asked who that person was. This, like, in all of the other Scream movies, the person behind the mask is somebody that you have stayed with the entire movie. Billy and Stu, Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. And the Mrs. Loomis part, was a whodunit because you didn't know that that was Mrs. Loomis. You thought that was Debbie Salt. In Scream 3, we had that fake out because you thought Roman died. And 4 had the biggest twist, I will say, of who the killer was, because just of how Emma Roberts pulled that mask off. And you're like, oh my god, I thought she was going to be the new final girl. So in this one, when they did the unmasking, I was very confused. Very. And I could see where one of them made a little sense, but the other was just cannon fodder. It was like, oh, we couldn't do another single Ghostface again. So, but then again, in every Scream movie, there is multiple Ghostfaces, except for Roman. But if you read the original script, even in Scream 3, there was supposed to be 2 Ghostface killers. It was supposed to be Angelina and Roman. The motives of the killers didn't make sense. It was almost like, oh, well, it's a Tuesday. I guess we'll just go try to kill Sidney Prescott. Seriously? All of these killers have had motives. Revenge, fame, wanting that, and jealousy, such like that. It almost seems like Kevin Williamson wanted to move away from the obsession with the stab movies and move to the obsession with Sidney. And in that regard, it kind of worked with a little bit of the killers, but it didn't work with the rest. And it was very, very rushed, and it didn't make sense whatsoever. My mother and I were talking about this in the car after we got out of the movie, where we were trying to figure out why that was the motive. Could we not have come up with something different? Anything, maybe? At all? Maybe, we had the parents of a former Ghostface. Why not the parents of a former victim? Why not, we actually utilized the families of these former killers, and kind of like they did in 6, but better. So that was a lot of back and forth with me. I wasn't too sure what I liked that. And even now, a day away from it, I'm not too fond of that reveal. I'm not too fond of that motive either. The pacing of the movie was called into question with me, more so with the final showdown. In each of these movies, that final part of the movie is the biggest part of the movie, and they all span a good amount of time. This one was extremely rushed. You have the reveal, there is very little bit of a monologue, and it's very bouncy back and forth because it's almost like psychotic, and not like Billy psychotic, like literal mental institution psychotic. And then Sidney does a little bit of a fight, and bam, 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 goes face down. Then the movie ends. There is not a lot of resolution there. You get maybe 2 minutes of Sidney sitting down with Tatum and talking to her, but there's not a lot of, reconciliation in that relationship. You get a moment where Sidney and Gail talk, a little bit of reconciliation in that relationship, but there's not a ton of resolution to the story. And the final showdown is so short because the majority of the film was taken up by looking at Sidney and Tatum's relationship. So it was a letdown for me. It is not my favorite showdown. It is one of the lesser ones for me. I would take pretty much all of them over this one. While this probably wouldn't be ranked as my least favorite film, that would definitely be ranked as my least favorite showdown and reveal. Because even in, 5, 6, 3, and all of that, we have a good bit of time where we can understand why they're doing this, or we can understand how they are going to not get out of it and such like that. Whereas this one, you're very much like, oh, that's why you're doing this? I don't see your point. Okay, moving on. But then moving on is credits. So that I wasn't really sure why they did that. Especially from Kevin Williamson, who has written these before. He wrote 1, 2, he co-wrote 3, he wrote 4. So you know what you're doing. You've written these before. But the question is was that his writing choice, or was that his co-writing choice? Or was he more focused on directing it that he didn't put as much into the script? So I'm not too sure about that. The last con I will say is Matthew Lillard. No. Don't click off the video. I am not saying that Matthew Lillard was bad. I love Matthew Lillard, and the way he played it was so great. But the way it was written, the way it was done, he was really underutilized. Do not bring Matthew Lillard back to use him in the same way you pretty much use Skeet Ulrich. You're doing that because you know the fandom wants Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard back. You know that since we got Skeet, we wanted Matthew back. And everyone in this entire fandom has said, is Stu dead? And then you give us this. So you basically dangled Matthew Lillard like a mouse toy to a cat, and then snatched it away when we finally came to see the film. So I was not happy with that. I loved seeing him on screen. I loved his mannerisms. I loved everything about Matthew Lillard, because Matthew Lillard is amazing. He wasn't played like Stu. There are moments in that where the things that he's saying is more feminine and not Stu. And even in 5 and 6, when you had Skeet come back and play Billy again, he still maintained his Billiness, if you will. Matthew didn't have his Stu-ness. And that's what made me go, okay, no, this isn't it. And I called the ending. I didn't call who the Ghostface Killers was, but I called what was going on with Stu. And that wasn't very helpful to me. I wanted Stu to come back. There are so many fan theories out there that any of them would have been amazing. I didn't like this one. Now, I will say, and Mom, I know you're, like I said, I know you're watching. My mother's idea of that Roman, because they did bring Scott Foley back. They also brought David Arquette and Laurie Metcalf back. But my mom thought that Roman was going to be in Sidney's head like Billy was in Sam's head, and I was absolutely not, no. But Matthew Lillard could have been used so much better. I will say that I really loved this moment in the opening where Jimmy Tatro's character, Scott, says that it was rumored that Stu was at a party at Windsor College, and she was like, no, he wasn't, he was dead. Matthew Lillard had actually come to visit the set, and Wes Craven put him in the scene, and it was great because that is actually what happened, but it wasn't Stu. So that was nice. But if you have Matthew Lillard coming back for your movie, do something with him. He was supposed to be the villain in Scream 3, which got changed because of a horrible, horrible event that I won't go into detail about. But he was not brought back for Scream 3 because of that. So even the writing team and the directors wanted Stu back. Why use him like this when you finally do get him back? It's just not something that I think was handled very well, especially when you have Matthew Lillard in your movie. If you get Matthew Lillard, you use Matthew Lillard, and you use him to the fullest extent, because that man has the range of a rainbow. and this is the way you choose to use him. No. I think my final rating would be a 6.5 out of 10. I really liked the acting. I didn't like the characters. I loved the fact that we saw Sidney as a mother, not necessarily just as a girl who's, again, being, terrorized. I think it took a lot of strength for Sidney to have children, so seeing her in that role was nice. But the writing was the biggest letdown. Not the directing. The directing was great. It was the writing. And that is something that, saying that is scary as somebody who loves Kevin Williamson's writing. But that's out of 10. If you look at it out of 5, depending on how you do your ratings, I would say it's about a 2.75, just a little over half. I don't know if it's my least favorite of the series. I still think I would probably say 4 is my least favorite. But there are some aspects of it that are my least favorite of the series. I would have loved for the overall story to make more sense, the motives, why the killers are who the killers are, and such like that. I would have loved to see Gale used more, and the twins. Definitely, if you're going to have somebody coming back, then I think that you should actually utilize them in the way that they were meant to be used. Do I think there will be a Scream 8? I know what I was looking at doing my research last night is that they are already in talks to do a Scream 8. They have already looked at Neve Campbell coming back. Kevin Williamson's on talks to do it again. I think that they will wind up doing a Scream 8. My only thing is I have things that I would like to see. My mother and I actually were talking about this as well as my partner and I. If they do a Scream 8, I feel like they have to kill Gil. And I feel like they have to do that as the opening kill. I am so tired from 5, 6, and 7 of there not being any real danger to your main cast. What that looks like to me is you're bringing the main cast back and you automatically know they're all going to survive. But all these new people, completely dead. Cannon fodder. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 might survive, but cannon fodder. And it's been like that in a couple of movies. A couple of other series as well. There has to be something. If you are going to do a Scream 8, there has to be a big thing. In Scream 3, we were not prepared for Cotton to die. He was a major character, but he died, and it was shocking. In Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Nancy died. We had, now granted, Jamie Lee Curtis' character, Laurie, faked her death in that series, but when 4 came out, 4 was one of the best Halloween movies there was, and Jamie Lee Curtis isn't in it. We see in this movie, and in 6, that Gale has a lot of health issues right now due to her attack. Make her... How's she going to fight off Ghostface if he comes for her? Please tell me that. I'm going to go ahead and put a spoiler thing up here, because I'm going to say one thing that's spoilery. And so, if you are not wanting to hear this, go ahead and skip ahead to whenever I have my hand down. Gale can barely hold a coffee cup. She is shaking in the entire movie. She is shaking like a leaf. Putting a microphone on. She is shaking. She has nerve damage. Horrific nerve damage. And you can say, oh, well, Dewey had nerve damage and he survived 5 films. Gale looks like if you blew on her, she would fall over. That's how bad she was shaking. How is she going to fight off a Ghostface attack if it actually happens? So in that regard, if they bring back Scream 8, I believe that Gale should be the opening kill. It's going to be gut-wrenching. It's going to be just horrific. I bawled in the theater when Dewey died. I'm probably going to cry if Gale dies. But you've got to do something to really amp it up and to bring that audience back after this film. And I don't think they're going to kill Sidney. Sure, they set Tatum up to be the new final girl, but I do not think there is a chance in Hades that they are going to kill Sidney. And if they did, I would be wholly surprised. But I think at this point, it's got to be Gale. And it's just because of how they used her character and how they treated her in this film. If it was Gale from Scream 6, I would say absolutely not a chance in Hades. I'm trying not to cuss as much, sorry. But in this one, I would say that she's on her way out the door. I also have seen a lot where people are saying she could be the killer. Not with the way that she was done in this film. There's no way. Unless she's like masterminding it. But I still couldn't see it. I also don't think that they would bring Chad and Mindy back. their characters were not utilized well enough, and there's not really much else. And their story is more tied to the Sam and Tara story, so it's like, do you bring Chad back? I mean, we brought Kirby back, but I think that Kirby should be in Scream 8. I think a great plot would be that Gale is the opening kill, and Kirby gets put on the case to see what's going on, and she's the one that tells Sidney, and Sidney and Kirby find out who the killers are. I think that would be great. But I'm not in the writer's room. So in closing, that was my review of Scream 7. I will watch it if there's more films. I will definitely buy it. I already looked at how much it would cost to pre-order it and such like that. While it isn't my favorite Scream film, it is still a Scream film, and I love Ghostface more than anything. So I hope that you go see it. I hope that you formulate your own opinions. I want to hear them. If you've seen the film, go ahead and drop your ranking down below or on my short that I posted today to let me know what you think. Hit that subscribe button. We will be doing more. Our next video is going to be It, Welcome to Derry, episode 6, which I am a little iffy about, kind of excited, kind of not excited. Leave a like on this video if you are excited for this film or if you've gone to see it, and like I said, comment down below your ranking for me. I mentioned in my last video, my In a Violent Nature video, that the way that I do these videos is going to be changing. I will kind of summarize that here if you weren't able to go see that video, or if for whatever reason you didn't watch that video. I had some health things come up, and I needed to cut back on the amount of videos I was doing. And having seen my last 3 videos, watching them back, there are a couple of things that I should have caught, but I was so distracted with everything that's been going on recently that I'm going to go down to 1 video a week for now. I am going to spend more time putting in the quality of the video instead of the quantity of how many videos there are, and I hope that that makes me more proud of the work that I'm doing and that you enjoy those more. We will be uploading on Sundays starting March 15th. That is going to be the first Sunday because this week is this video and my In a Violent Nature 2 trailer reaction. And then we will be looking at 2 episodes of It, SLC Punk, and Friday the 13th Part 2 this month. So those are the videos we're going to be doing. And I'm very excited for those. I haven't seen SLC Punk, and I've seen Friday the 13th. Who hasn't seen it? But for whatever reason, please come join us. Please come, look at my reactions of these videos. We are well on our way to 500 subscribers. We are nearly hitting 300, which is insane to think about. I am so excited. I'm just very touched that everybody is here with me and enjoying the content that I'm putting out. This has been a dream that I've had for well over a decade, and I'm finally realizing it because of you guys and the hard work that I'm putting in, and the fact that you guys are sitting down and giving me your time and watching these videos. So thank you for being here with me, and I hope that you'll stay and subscribe and watch all the content that I've got coming your way. But until next time, cinephiles, please go see Scream. Please let me know what you think of it, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.